doing?
I'm good.
Thank you, favor.
Yes.
You can roll it.
Yeah.
I'm from the homeless shelter.
Yeah.
I need 2 up in the bus. Get the shelter. Bus 21.
I don't have a thing on me. Sorry, buddy.
2 up in the shelter.
Hey, gang. I finally started broadcasting now because I think the rain is finally gone. This is Daily Out Adventure number 671. Woohoo! Today I am dodging rain, big time. Came downtown and ended up sitting in my van for hang on, let me adjust my volume here. Sitting in my van for 2 hours waiting for it to stop raining. If I had known. I kept watching the weather map. Anyway, good to be back. So I hope to finish, as you can imagine, hope to finish this painting that I started last Friday. So this is Monday evening. And I'm close to being finished. Let me zoom in a little bit here so you can get a better picture of what's going on. Just decided right this minute to start tackling some tree holes, known to most of the rest of the art world as sky holes. But over here they're building holes, right? So that's kind of silly. So anyway, I call them tree holes. My good buddy Joey's been hanging out here. Can I turn you around? Can I turn you around? There's Joey.
I'm Joey.
Aspiring young artist has been
Enchanté.
keeping me company for the last little while. It's just a beautiful evening. You know, I've said this before. Oh my goodness! Hang on, I've got to show you guys the sky and what's going on. I've said before that if you want, there we go. Want you to see. Heather says hi, Joey.
Hi, Heather.
Just gorgeous evening. I've been, for the last 20-30 minutes, I've had to run away from my painting frequently and say, oh man, hang on, Joey, I got to go take more pictures. That's a good lesson for you plein air painters. The best scenes happen when you're dodging weather. Okay, so if you're too timid about the weather and you're afraid to get out because it might rain, you're going to miss an awful lot of great scenes. So my phone is full of Raleigh after rain photographs, and they're just gorgeous. So mark that down in your little how to do plein air painting notebook. And remember, don't be too put off by the weather, because sometimes the best things come to those who brave the weather. That is really true. Tonight's one of those cases. Now, it doesn't matter that much for this painting because the die is already cast. I'm going to do what I'm going to do here. But I got some really nice photographs that may turn into future paintings, of course. Just because we're plein air painters doesn't mean we can't also paint from photographs, right? You know that right well. I didn't need to say that, did I? So this is the first time I've worked on the sky in a long time, in many layers. And I certainly don't want to do too much.
Now, Dan, is this
Yeah.
light going to make or break you here? Or is it just that it's better to have a little natural light?
No, right. The daylight, this will take care of me perfectly. And this is color balance. See, that's all blue. That's all warm. And so you can set it, and I've got plenty of light, of course, and plenty of battery. Back in the olden days, before LEDs were popular, I used to have automotive, like car lights, and I carried a car battery in that box down there to give me, light. This is a whole lot easier. Here's the batteries right there.
Yeah.
And those two will give me about, I think, about 8 hours. I don't know. I've never tested them yet to find their limits, but it's a. Somebody asked me this afternoon, or on a text. Yeah, it was this afternoon. What is it? It's called a Generay, Generay, Generay bicolor. If anybody's interested in buying one of these lights, I got it out of B&H Photo out of New York, online, of course. But that's what it's called. It's
fantastic.
Thank you, man. It's called a Generay bicolor, and really, really, really nice. And as you saw, you can balance. You can change the by bicolor. They mean warm, cool, and very convenient.
Thank you to your friends there, and I gotta go, but it's been lovely to meet
It has
you.
been, Joey.
And just
Bless you.
phenomenal watching.
Thank you,
I hope
thank
to be
you.
back again.
Catch me online sometime. Say hi. Haha, that's fun. Half the fun of painting downtown is the people you meet. Most people are nice. That's part of my philosophy of life. Most people are nice. Some are not. You just have to get over it. But don't start going down that grumpy path of most people are not nice. That's not true. And if that's how you feel, then you're probably one of the ones that's not nice. I hate to break the news to you. It's like everybody else knows you're a jerk except you. That's people that are jerks. Anyway, never mind. I'm not gonna chase that down any further. I already chased it too far. Hey, let me talk. Oh, good. Lots of chats already. Hi, Heather. I passed your hello on to Joey, but I didn't say hello myself. Good to have you back. It's been a while. And hi, DB. Thank you for that encouraging word. Oh, there's my wife, Nancy. Izzy, Lake, and I are watching. Hello. That's grandson, granddaughter, and wife. Thank you. And that's right. Raleigh After Rain does sound like a great title, doesn't it, Heather? Antonio Papa. Nancy, thank you for asking. And Brazil. Edition JA, beautiful work. I speak of Brazil. Thank you. That's fun. Thank you, Nancy, for asking who else is here. That's fun. Okay, let me talk about this painting a little bit. The last time I worked on it, of course, was Saturday. Started Friday, got rained out very quickly. And while I'm talking, I just got to show you this beautiful, and it's just as beautiful the other direction. Yeah, let's try to get this so the automatic exposure gets adjusted right. Come on, go dark, go dark. There we go. There we go. Now it'll probably go too light now. Just beautiful out here. Of course, it won't. I mean, this lighting is going really fast. There were umbrellas here, of course, on Friday when I started. That's why blue umbrellas. That's why there are umbrellas in my painting. Anyway, I was going to say, teaching moment here. Worked on it on Friday and Saturday. Didn't pay too much attention to it on Sunday. When I came back and looked at it seriously, if you will, this morning, I had an experience that is not all that unusual, but it is definitely instructive. When I left the painting on Saturday evening, I had this feeling that I had a lot more work to do all up here, everywhere really. But when I came back and looked at it with fresh eyes this morning, I went, oh my goodness, I don't have nearly as much work to do as I thought. All the stuff that was really loose, I was finding, as I looked at it with fresh eyes, I was finding it to be very pleasant and finished, way more finished than I thought. Does that make sense? So that is a good principle. The principle is try to notice how finished something is while you're working on it. In other words, to have that experience, to see it through fresh eyes without having to take 2 days off. Am I making sense? If you want to be, I'm saying to myself, Dan Nelson, I'm saying to myself, if you want to be a good painter, learn from that little experience you had this morning. Once I looked at this painting with fresh eyes, I realized, oh my goodness, I don't have nearly as much to do as I thought. The stuff that felt to me, like for instance, let me zoom in here real quick. This blue stuff, and now it's got a yellow stripe in front of it. That blue stuff, I thought this was all really, really too messy. But then when I came back this morning and looked at it, I went, oh my goodness, that's beautiful. Don't mess with it. So I'm not going to, at least very, 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 very little, and so on. So that dynamic, I've said this many times before. Let me tell you what it's like to be a part of a painters group. If you have a, like we do, a monthly painters forum, we get together, anywhere from 6 to 20 of us, I would think. It'd be fairly normal. And one person will get up, and we take turns. Artist A will get up and show us his or her work. And very often they'll say, now, I'm not finished with this area over here. And virtually everybody in the room goes, no, don't touch it. Because all the other artists are seeing it more not through eyes of expectation, but through eyes of reality. And they're going, no, that looseness, that's the best part, and stuff like that. So then artist A will sit down, and artist B will stand up, and they'll say, well, I'm pretty much done, except for this area over here needs a little more work. And everybody in the room, this is a slight exaggeration, but not much. Everybody in the room, including artist A who just sat down, will say, no, don't touch it. So do you hear what's going on? Here's the truth. As artists, we are always more willing for the other guy to stop at a higher level of abstraction than we're willing to. That is so true. It's just almost hilarious. Yeah, I've seen it month after month, year after year. We are always more willing, and I think it's because the other artists in the room, as I said, are not seeing it through eyes of, well, I was gonna. Yeah, that's what the artist is saying, or I'm gonna. The artist often has a future trajectory in mind, and it usually includes a higher degree of realism. But everybody else in the room is going, oh no, can't you see what's going on there? That's beautiful. Anyway, so that really is a true principle, and something you really have to watch out for. So I experienced that myself this morning with my own painting. When I came back with fresh eyes, I was saying sort of in my mind, okay, I've got a lot of work to do over here. And then I looked at it and went, oh no, don't, don't touch it. So I was glad that I was able to catch it myself. So here I am. I can probably almost take down that other umbrella shortly. Here I'm doing a sign. It's a very famous sign on our main street. It's called Boylan Pierce. It is the Boylan Pierce building. And I say really famous, it's famous in this regard that the original sign, I got off on this I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday last week when I was painting. I got talking, I think it was Friday. I got talking about buildings in America being raped and pillaged during the temporary insanity of modernity. Ugly modernity. So this ornate, kind of fancy sign, of course, got taken off the building way back in the 40s, 50s, or 60s, probably. That's what we wanted. Things to look modern. We didn't like this old-fashioned stuff hanging around. So it got ripped off. So it got ripped down. The sign did. But back about 10 years ago, when this whole street was being rebuilt, it had been a pedestrian mall for a number of years. And the pedestrian mall was a financial disaster. But it was a financial disaster, I happen to know. P-E-A, whoops, it's an R. That's not supposed to be a P. It was a financial disaster because of the attitude of the city leaders. That's another story. I don't want to get into it. Anyway, so they finally decided to tear up the mall and open the street again to vehicular traffic. So at the same time, then a number of investors bought these old buildings and began fixing them up. You with me? So they went into the photographic archives, historical photographs of the city, and researched as close as they can to what the original Boylan Pierce sign used to look like. And then they built a new one, trying to replicate the old one, right? So now everybody, well, I mean, not everybody in town, everybody who cares and everybody who knows and everybody who's involved, so to speak, aesthetically or culturally downtown goes, yay, that's so cool. Including me. Now, are we still going? Okay. So let me turn you around. Of course, it's almost dark out here now, so it's just going to look like darkness. But there's the sign, right? So it's light. It's a lighted sign, so it's light letters against a dark background, which, for a painter, throws me into a bit of a pickle. Hang on just a minute. I'm gonna fix you guys again. Throws me into a bit of a pickle because there is one principle, which you know very well if you follow me. There's one principle that says you paint darks first, lights last, right? If you follow me at all, you've heard that. You're tired of hearing that. Darks first, lights last. But, alas, there is another principle that says you paint the object, so in this case, the letters are the object against the background of the sign. Does that make sense? The dark background, the dark sign is the background, the letters are clearly on top of it. So there's no, if you get my language, there's no confusion here about what is object and what is background. The letters are object, the dark sign is background. All right. So there's another principle. One principle says darks first, lights last. There's another principle that dictates you paint let me see, how can I say this? You paint in the negative whenever possible. So what that means is, instead of painting the letters very carefully with light paint like I just did a minute ago, it's preferable, because you want to paint in the negative whenever you can. If you haven't followed me for long, you're just going to have to keep on following me and figure out why that is the case. It definitely is the case. But you, whenever possible, you paint in the reverse. That is to say, you paint the background on top of the object. Hello.
Sorry,
yeah, YouTube.
I just now realized you were streaming. This is awesome.
Either that or I'm schizophrenic and I'm talking to myself, and
No,
I just put all this stuff up here.
Like, who are you talking to? And then yeah. This is awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So with a rag there, I just messed up some of my letters a little bit. All right, so if you hear me right, I have two opposing principles at work here. One says dark first, light last. The other one says object first, background second. Now, please understand, when I say that, say it again. I say object first, background second. Now, all those of you who are still, forgive me, in your first half of your art journey, you're getting a little whiplash right now, because you're saying, what? No. Let me use a clear example, and a very common example. Which do you paint first, the tree or the sky? If you're in the first half of your art journey, that is where you're learning to paint stuff that looks like stuff, realism, you paint the sky first, then the tree. Why? Because the tree's on top of the sky. That's real easy. First half. Second half of journey, which not everybody gets to, but I recommend that you learn to paint like Rembrandt. What a joke. As if any of us can paint like Rembrandt. As if anybody has painted like, anyway. But the second half of life is you learn, after you've learned how to paint stuff that looks like stuff, then you want to paint stuff that looks like paint. And in that case, you paint the sky, then the tree, then you paint the sky holes on top of the tree. The last touch is the light on top, because it creates a little confusion, which creates aesthetic pleasure in the viewer. Everybody knows the sky is behind the tree in reality, but when they see blue sky-colored paint on top of the tree, there's a little wiggle of momentary confusion, and that confusion, believe it or not, creates aesthetic pleasure. All right, so over here, what should I paint first? Following that principle, what should I paint first? The letters or the background? If you're in the first half of art journey, you're trying to paint stuff that looks like stuff, it's real easy. You paint a big dark sign, then you come back with a little skinny brush and you paint white letters. Got it? Which follows darks first, light last, so good for you, but it violates the other principle, which is you want to paint whenever possible in the negative or in the reverse. Why? Because it creates aesthetic pleasure. Because there's a momentary wiggle, I say, wiggle jiggle of confusion, which, contrary to your intuition, because most of us would say, I don't like being confused. Yeah, but in art you do. So how do you do it here? And the answer is, I don't know. The way I've done it, of course, I paint in layers, so that's the real answer, layers. But the last thing I painted here, as you just saw, was dark around the light letters. So I followed the principle, whenever possible, paint in reverse. Paint negative. Don't paint the letters, paint around the letters. So I followed that principle. But then there's this other principle, as you know, that says darks first, lights last. So guess what I'm going to do? So I'm going to try to do both principles as much as possible, both of them at the same time, which means I'm mixing up now a little bit of paint that's slightly lighter than what's already here, and I'm just going to put dabs of it here and there. So I can't, now I violated the second principle, because I'm not painting in the negative, I'm painting in the positive, I'm painting the letters, but I'm doing it in such a piecemeal, delicate, little bit here and there that I'm trying to get the best of both worlds. I hope you caught all that, because that was really important. Good question, Heather. Do I go in between them with the fuzz layer? The answer is I do fuzz. I did fuzz on this sign earlier, but not now. Yes, that was one of the earlier layers. I also talked Saturday or Friday, quite a bit about letters, painting letters, and I get into this quite often in my paintings because I paint downtown scenes. I do quite a few signs. There we go. That was nice. There we go. That's nice. All right, so do you see what I'm doing? I just put 2 fingers in this rag and just rubbed them through that wet paint. Now, I did it really fast and long, not it. I've tried to teach people how to do this live in class. I say you have to do it with energy, and then they always figure out some way to get around what I say, and they go like a little flick, like I said, no. It's like whoosh, your whole arm, your whole body in motion here. That's what we're talking about. And I just with those marks, I just intentionally messed up what was a little bit too orderly, a little bit too fastidious, right? And now sometimes I go back and clean up after I do that mess. But let me talk just for a minute. How do I know, since I'm doing it, what you just saw me do, how do I know that it's going to look good? Because I'm doing it so fast. Surely I can't be, so to speak, planning. And you're correct. No, I'm not planning. I am painting very quickly. And how do I know that it's going to look good? The answer is real simple. It's because I know the kind of movement I'm going to make when I do that. I know I'm going to go like starting here and go, and then another one going the other way. I went, right? Those movements were fast, energetic, bold, confident. What other words do you want to throw on top of that pile? Fast, energetic, bold, confident. And any stroke applied with enthusiasm, vigor, joy, boldness, confidence, any stroke applied with that kind of energy is going to be an attractive stroke. So that's how I know that it's going to look good, is not because I'm planning it in an exact, where am I going to hit? You know, am I going to hit the P and the N, or am I going to hit the L and the Y, or am I going to get the R and the A? Nope. I'm not planning it like that at all. It doesn't matter where it hits. I know it's going to look good because of the way that I'm moving, okay? The essence of good painting is making interesting marks, and interesting marks are always born of interesting movements. All right? I know I didn't have to explain that, but there you go. I did. This right here is in reality, it's a black canopy awning fabric, and but it has a lot of light hitting it. So that's earlier this evening. You can't see it now, but earlier this evening it had a definite bluish cast to it. So that's what I've done there. I'm just going to go ahead and darken this side of the awning just a little bit. I've got the same thing going on here. There's little tiny words printed on the side of this awning. I am not going to, they're way too small for me to try to make legible. And that is a typical mistake that many beginner artists would make. They would get out their tiny brush, put on their penmanship brain, and I'm doing the same thing with my rag now. And they would stick out their tongue and write those letters. It would be horrible. Being rough tonight, folks. Being rough. All those of you with tender hearts, you might maybe ought to leave. Dan Nelson said I was horrible. No, I'm not. I don't know who you are. But if I can keep you from painting horrible, woohoo! That is time well spent, is it not? So again, doing the same, actually the same exact trick. You do darks first, or darks first, lights last. But you do the opposite. You do the image first, then the background. So that's what I did: image, background, and then lights again. And that's a little bit too fastidious. I just scribbled on it. I am very close to finished. I better be careful. I better be really careful. By the way, thank you, Barbara. I believe I have a bid of $750 on the painting. If anybody wants to raise that bid, you just feel free. Barbara says, no, don't say that. So if you want to be nice to Barbara, don't raise the, if you want to be nice to me. It's me versus Barbara. No, I'm tickled for you to have Barbara, if it turns out that way. I did, when I first, I will tell you, I need to tell Barbara in particular, that when I first set up here this evening, while it was still raining, or just finishing raining, an old friend came by, an attorney woman, lawyer woman who owns 2 of my paintings already. And she said, nah, I won't buy this one because it's too much like one of yours I already own. But I am going to take a picture and send it to a bunch of my friends. So I'm going to give some of them just a little bit of time. Not much, Barbara, not much. I'm not going to go fishing for a long time. But if one of them comes back this evening, say, and says, we understand your paintings, then I might talk to them, okay? All right. The delicacies of doing an auction. Okay, I'm just about down to the point where I just want to do these people. I worked on them a little bit already before I started. I was painting for a while this evening because I have umbrellas too. This one you can see. I have 2 umbrellas over me to keep me out of the rain, but I don't have umbrellas for my camera and some of my electronics, so I couldn't start broadcasting until the rain really stopped. So I already did some work on these people. Okay, so what I'm doing right now, oh, and somebody asked me this today, and I didn't get a chance to answer it yet. Somebody left a comment. Did you paint the sidewalk after the people? I think that was this painting they were talking about. And here you see the answer to that. At least if I'm remembering that right. The answer is absolutely yes. So what principle am I doing here? It's same as sky holes. Everybody knows that these people are in front of the sidewalk. The sidewalk is behind them, right? And the people are dark-ish, silhouette-ish in front of the light on the sidewalk, right? Everybody knows that. Therefore, I paint the opposite. Okay, so I didn't know this was going to be a major theme in tonight's broadcast, but evidently it is. Why do I do the opposite? Why am I saying? The answer is pleasure. Aesthetic pleasure created in the mind of the viewer. So, and another, I also was using the term a good deal the other night. I'll repeat it here. The human eye, you regulars, repeat after me. The human eye is inexorably drawn to punctiliar light. Okay? That means you can't help it. All human beings They like to look at dotty light. All right? And this is classic dotty light. And that's why I don't use the term points of light. Why don't you just say human beings like to see points of light? The reason would be because if I had, for instance, twinkle Christmas lights hanging from the umbrella, which would be not uncommon, right? Then y'all would go, oh, I get it. Yeah, people like to see twinkly lights, and that would be a serious misunderstanding of what I'm trying to teach. Okay? What I'm saying is, this is 30 by 40. What I'm saying is, people like to see dotification. No, that's a bad word on my channel. We better not start using that one for a good principle, or we'll all get confused. No, people like to see punctiliar light that is point-ish. Okay? And again, this down here is classic. I know, and now believe me, there's a million paint secrets that I don't know that evidently Rembrandt and a whole bunch of other people do know. Right? Are you with me? So I'm still scratching and clawing my way to try to learn what is it that great artists and painters know that I don't know. But there are some things that I do know, okay? And that's what I'm giving you. I'm giving you one of those. One of the things I do know is that human eyeballs, the human brain literally, is going to be, as I inexorably drawn to the points of light coming through furniture and legs and so forth down here. It's happening everywhere, but really here. This is a real classic example of punctiliar light. And it's also a classic example of, I painted the objects first, the people and the chairs and tables, then paint the background second. So I'm getting that same principle, same thing I've talked about twice already. Does that make sense? I'm thinking, by the way, I know I'm close to finished, and I'm so close that, I'll put it this way, since I already brought it up. If I took this to my painters group, my wonderful, dear artist friends, next Tuesday, if I stopped right here and said, well, I'm almost finished, there would be a huge chorus in the room, and they'd say, no, you are finished. Okay, that's classic. So I need to make sure that I'm not making that classic blunder of taking everything just a little too far. Listen to this, and I say this in my live classes all the time. Listen, left to our own devices, virtually every artist on the planet will overdo it. Overdo what? The answer is overdo everything. Overdo every single layer, everything. Like I paint in layers, right? That just means I have this same problem. How do you know when to quit? Yeah, maybe you know the old joke. How many people does it take to do a painting? 2, one to paint, one to shoot them. Because most of us, admit it, don't know when to quit. Now, I will tell you, like I just demonstrated, where I didn't mention it, there is one kind of, not a real exception, but a partial exception to that rule. Okay, are you ready? And it's one worth noting. And it's one that I'm doing right now and have been for several minutes. If all the time you invest on your canvas takes the canvas toward realism, I'm going to make realism that way tonight, okay? If all the time is detail, realism, accuracy, then it's real easy to overdo it. Real easy to overdo it. Okay, you don't know when to quit, and you should have quit before you did. There is at least a little bit of a safety valve in this. If some of the work that, like I'm doing here, that you're doing late in the process doesn't go that way, but in fact goes this way. And that, in other words, goes toward abstraction, goes toward spontaneous and free movements like this, for instance. I just see, okay, so that was a black pencil. I just made a real feathery, almost not there line right there. See, that has nothing to do with realism. That moves us that way. So you can work on a canvas longer if more of your work is going this way than that way. Does that make sense? Now, having said that, probably need somebody here to shoot me, but I'm going to work a little bit longer, just a little bit, and here's what I'm going to do. I feel like my people down here are a little bit too uniformly purple, for one thing, and uniformly dark. So I want to go in and do just a little bit of color. All right, before I do that though, I think it was Redina. I don't know if you're watching. Yes, Barbara, did you hear me mention just a few minutes ago I did get your bid? Thank you. That window looked like it's floating on the left. Okay, before I work on the people, this painting is turning out quite well. It has some, for me, has some surprising, successful elements in it. Okay, if you've watched me lately, you know that I'm on this adventure journey to try to have more of the abstract underpainting show through in the finished piece. And Redina, if I'm not remembering wrongly, I think you asked me, because you haven't been watching very long, that's all right, why do I do the abstract? All right, so and some of you are, that's a good question, some of you are wondering. I'm actually going to pick you up, and so hang on, you're going to get an earthquake right here for a minute. I'm going to point at different parts of my painting and show you why I do. Okay, now back up a little bit. Just here's a green stripe that goes all the way. It turns blue down here. It's green down here. Okay, that was part of one of the very first marks that I put on the canvas. Is that registering? Way up here, here's red and orange. That was the very first marks. Here's another green one right here. Now, some of these might have been added later, so I'm not saying they're all first, but okay, let's talk about this one for a minute. Do you see that red mark? So, forgive me if I'm repeating myself too much, but you understand did I say red? Forgive me, green. I'm colorblind. Green. See that green mark? Please let this sink in if you're new. That has absolutely nothing to do with realism. Okay? That green is not there like, oh, I get it, it's reflecting the tree. No. Oh, I get it, this guy has a green headband on. No. Oh, I get it, for some reason the road is, nope, 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 nope. There's no getting it. It's absolutely abstract. All right, is that established? Now I'd like to say, and here's the weird part, because not all of you are going to agree with me necessarily, but I'm going to say, doggone, does it look cool? Okay, so I'm going to back up so you can get more of the whole picture. Now, did I know, you regulars, you know the answer to this, did I know when I made that green mark that it was going to be on part of a tabletop, that it was going to go across one guy's forehead, then kind of disappear, then show up on the front grill of this car, and then this the top of this guy's head fades out, goes to green, and and of course the answer is no, I didn't know any of that. Well, then how did I know that that green mark was going to look cool? It's very similar to how did I know that when I ran a rag with my finger in it through this sign, how did I know that was going to look cool? And by the way, of course, you don't have to agree with me, but if you don't, sorry, you're not an artist. That looks cool. It looks cool. Does it look realistic? No. Same thing here. This green, this one's even better. I'm thrilled with this one. Look at it, it's real hot right there. and then it goes kind of behind that umbrella and then comes out here. Absolutely nothing to do with realism. Are you with me? And then here, look where it, now here, it does kind of, it looks like a window. This whole window is just reflecting the light down the street, right? But it has a little bit of green in it and orange, and that window is just gorgeous. And then that green and orange stripe kind of go into this guy's face. I might mess with that a little bit, but not too much. Do you understand? Are you beginning to see? And I hope some of you are watching who don't really. Here's another, way down at the bottom. Here's a very strong blue streak. Has nothing to do with realism. In fact, when I was doing some of this purple sidewalk stuff, I painted purple paint up to that blue line and down to it and up to it. There, and there. This is all dry now. So I actually re-emphasized or accentuated this blue stripe by painting around it. Okay? Here's another blue streak right here. Now you might say, well, that's blue because, you know, there's a lot of blue in the umbrellas. And sure enough, there is a lot of blue in the umbrellas. And maybe if that's, but up here, this has absolutely nothing to do with reality. Even this stuff up here, nothing to do with reality. Let me make sure you're not just getting glare there. But doggone if it doesn't look cool. Now, believe me, I'm not saying that I am all that. or that this painting is all that. I mean, you know, I hope in 5 years that I will be utterly embarrassed with this painting and all the other paintings I do. Does that make sense? I really do. That would have to mean that I'm going to improve so much in the next 5 years that I'll hang my head in embarrassment when I think about the paintings of this era. Now, by the way, when I see paintings now that I did 5 or 10 years ago, most of the time, almost all the time, I go, thank God I'm way better now. It's easy for me to see that. But every once in a while I do, oh, but I like that painting. It's not as good as I do now, but it's a respectable painting. I sort of feel that way about almost all of them. There's some that I really feel like are nice, but generally speaking, I'm just saying, generally speaking, that has been my growth curve over the last 5 and 10 years. So I hope that will continue. All right, all I'm saying there is some of the stuff that I'm, what's the word? Extolling, rejoicing, celebrating here right now. In the future, I might go, well, that was dumb. Okay, so do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not pretending that I'm all that. But for where I'm at right now in my journey, I'm generally quite happy with some of those, and especially with the abstract elements that are still visible late in the late stages of this painting. All right, so I mentioned a while ago, one of the things I want to do is put a little bit of more color on some of these people. Let me zoom back in now. So like I just did that pale green. That mark right there is not realism. That's just a green mark, as is that. Hey, big boy. One of the things I will do often, hello. One of the things I will do often with, I mentioned this green abstract stroke here, and this is a real good trick to remember. I've just mixed up a color that's essentially the same color as that stroke, but now it's opaque paint. Does that make sense? And I'm reinforcing that green swoop by putting opaque paint on top. Very effective. Why is it effective? Again, my best description is because it taps into that confusion thing. And I'll be talking about that some more. I know if you're a newcomer, you're going, what? I don't like being confused. No, if you feel that way, it's because you're OCD and you need therapy. Woo-hoo. I'm trying to be funny. That probably wasn't very funny. My wife will say, Dan, you should be more sensitive because people really do have OCD. Oh yeah, okay, sorry. So sorry to all of you. I just offended horribly. You can tell how sorry I am by how I'm still chuckling. Anyway, it is very common for people, for young people who are in the early half of their journey, art journey, it's very common for them to have a hard time grasping these realities because most of them are still quite committed, as they should be, to the first half of their journey, which is painting stuff that looks like stuff, okay? I said the other night, and this opinion is sort of growing on me slightly. It's not a hill I'm willing to die on, but it's one I'm willing to repeat again, that college students should never be treated, almost never, there are the rare exceptions, but for the most part, they should not be treated as if they're in the second half of their art journey. They should be trained as if they are in the first half of their art journey. And there are exceptions to that. I think of one of the young men, and I do not usually say good things about my college art experience because it was not a good experience, tragically. It was typical. It was not that good. They did not teach me how to do this. Anyway, but I did have a classmate. He graduated a year ahead of me. I can't remember his name now, but he was a very sober, old soul. I do not want to be him, but I did not want to be him, and I still don't. But I did respect him. By the way, let me show you something here. Anyway, he was a very unusual college student. He acted like he was 60 when he was in his 20s, and that is something you can't fake. That's just the way he was, and I wouldn't recommend that. It reminds me of like one of the real creative geniuses who die young. I don't know if he died young or not, but anyway, I can't think of one college student who could have been trained in the second half of his art journey. He was very good draftsman, very good drawer, but he had the soul of a mature person. Very rare, very, very rare indeed. Anyway, where was I going? So I'm saying art. Yeah, it's very hard for people in the first half of their journey, many of them, myself included. I don't think I hit, I did not, no, there's no think about it. I know almost exactly when I hit the second half. It was when I was 50 years old. And I don't think that is extraordinary to be 50 years old. Up until the age of 50, I was in the first half of my art journey. I was learning how to paint and draw stuff that looked like stuff. And guess what? It has served me in the years since. It has served me very well because I'm a good drawer. And I learned how to be a good drawer by staying in the first half of the art journey for a long time. All right, so I'm trying to give grace to some of you who said, man, I just don't get it. I think the best art is stuff that looks like stuff. Here's an interesting story for what it's worth. When I moved to Raleigh in 1989, my wife and I moved here. I very quickly searched out, the local artists organization, and I found it. It was called the North Carolina Association of Designers and Illustrators. Had a great time for several years in that organization. I was an illustrator, so I fit right in. It was very beneficial. Anyway, one of the fellow members of that group was this guy named Drew Blair, D-R-U, Drew Blair. And all I have to do is tell you his name, and you just have to go to Google and type D-R-U Blair. And you will stumble upon the best airbrush artist in the world. And I really liked Drew a lot. He moved out of town several years ago now. But if you want to see the realism, one of the things I say about people who who stay committed to their first half of the journey, and that's okay. And I have a dear friend, I won't say his name, but should I? No. But he is a phenomenal artist, announced, I just got a Facebook post from him today, he sent one out, that he's been invited to Moscow. Because he won some kind of competition. And he's winning competitions all the time. Every time he wins one, I go, doggone, maybe I made the wrong choice back in 2004. Maybe I should have stuck with the, I really do think that, but not for long, usually. Maybe I should have stuck with that, because he does hyper realistic and beautiful, beautiful watercolors. Anyway, I was going to say, so if you are going to do realism, if you insist on staying in the first half of the journey, I do have some advice for you. It is this, and I'm serious, and especially if you're young, not if you're older, you're just painting for fun, you just keep on doing what you're doing. But if you're under 30, I do have advice for you. If you want to stay a realistic painter, then man, put the pedal to the metal. Don't compare yourself to mediocre realists. Don't even look at their work. You find the best dang realists on the planet and chase them. Okay, that's my friend that I just mentioned, whose name I'm not going to mention. That is what he has done. He's like, in my mind, he is the gold standard for realism in watercolor. And if that's what you're going to do, then, as I said, put the pedal to the metal. When I went to Oil Painters of America 2 years ago in Dallas, that's basically the best oil painters in America are part of OPA. And most of the painters that were in that show, their work is messier than mine. Like I'm on a scale, if let's say 0 is hyper realistic and 100 is crazy, so let's say I'm at a 65. Most of the people in OPA are 70, 75, maybe not quite 80, but okay, just I'm using kind of crazy numbers just to make the point. But there were a handful, and I commend the judges, whoever they were, for including them. There were a handful of hyper realists. And of course, here's what I think. I think all of us, except art professors who have boxed themselves philosophically into a position so that they can't respond like a normal human being anymore. And that is what professors do in every area. Not just professors, but a lot of people. Anyway, that all human beings, when they see really good hyperrealism, everybody goes, oh my God, or something like that. Do you follow me? All right, so I was going to say, if you want to see some, now leaving watercolor for a minute, if you want to see some realism that will just absolutely curl your hair, then either type in the name Drew Blair, or type in, get this, type in, you can remember this, type in, "This is not a photograph." Now this is getting quite old now. Drew's portrait of Tika, I think she was Brazilian model, I think is 10 years old now, maybe more. So it's certainly not new stuff. But anyway, he's also got one of Morgan Freeman. And honestly, the name of it is "This is not a photograph." And it's so funny because there are people online in the comments who argue and say, "No, you can tell it's a fake. Look, you can tell it's the fake." And they'll say, like, "Look at the earring, look at the jewel. You can see the color shift that shows up only in photography, blah, 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 blah." It's hilarious, because there are human beings out there who just cannot handle the fact that there's somebody else out there who is so doggone good. Anyway, that's So if you want to do realism, and it's okay, that's okay. Like I said, every time my friend gets invited to some far-flung international competition because he's won another thing and I haven't. Every time that happens, I think, man, maybe I shall go back. And I don't really think that for long, but the thought does flit through my mind. All right, I think I'm done adding people to these people, adding color to these people. I sure have had fun jabbering, and that can get kind of dangerous, can't it? This area right here was a little bit empty, so I just pulled a trick out of my hat. Let me zoom in so you can see what I'm doing here. I'm going to move you guys. Hang on. Yeah, so if you want to see some realism. Oh, and I was going to say the rest of that story is I remember so clearly back in 1990. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe somewhere in there. I remember Drew doing a presentation at our monthly meeting, and he stated emphatically, he said, the only way to judge, the only objective way to judge art is similitude, is based on realism. Of course, I didn't agree with him, but I found it darn fascinating that he said that. And he had the chops to back it up, okay? So you really should, just for fun, you should, not right now because I'm still talking. Okay, by the way, what I'm doing here is I made some real quick pencil marks, right, just a second ago. And now I'm painting up to the pencil marks, if you will, re-accentuating them. Is that a word, re-accentuating? By painting right next to them. Anyway, so I'll never forget that. Drew said his philosophy of art was it's all about similitude, it's all about realism. And then doggone if he isn't the best. And by the way, you know, who's going to say who's the best airbrush painter in the world? I've said this for years now. And I don't follow that. Well, I do airbrush, by the way, and I learned a lot from Drew. I used to do airbrush, I should say, really, to be more honest. But, you know, there'll be one guy in Japan, and he'll say, or somebody will say about him, he's as good as Drew Blair. Then there's one guy in Russia, and somebody will say about the guy in Russia, and he's as good as Drew Blair. And then there's some guy in England. You getting the picture? So that's why I rest my case. They don't compare themselves to the guy in Russia and Japan and England. They all compare themselves to Drew Blair. It's quite the hoot that he lived here in my hometown for a good 10 years before he moved away. That is really remarkable. What's the word? Fun advantage, fun benefit. Got sort of a dirty mustard on my brushes right now, and just doing a little bit of dirty mustard color, you know. Actually, there's quite a bit of dirty mustard in this painting, isn't there? Otherwise known as warm white. I am definitely at the point now I had better quit, or I'm probably wish that I had. How many people does it take to do painting? 2, 1 to paint, 1 to shoot them. I am officially finished. Let me back you up. All right, it's been a little while since I did my signature on camera. So you old timers, you can leave now. They are, don't worry, they are. They're saying, "Oh, I'm out of here. I've heard this lecture, this tirade too many times." All right, so here we go. Dan Nelson's signature tirade. First of all, I don't usually, which corner does it go in? Usually the bottom right, but sometimes the bottom right is too busy, and so then bottom left. That's generally, okay? Number 1, by yourself. Stop trying to get by and cheat and say, well, it's good enough. No, it is not. Don't. And yes, these people should be paying me for this. You can't see that, can you? Winsor Newton Series 7. This is a number 1. Winsor Newton Series 7. Often imitated, never matched. That's my impression. I've been given some brushes. Say, hey, try this. We think it's as good as Winsor Newton. And I'm always hoping that somebody is, but so far, nope. All right. Where do you put your signature? Well, at this point, at that point, you have to think like a graphic designer. Not too high up, not too low down. By all means, don't sign like some people do. They're so ashamed of their existence that they sign as if they're ashamed to sign their painting. That's ridiculous. So don't sign right along the bottom. That's bad. It's not good graphic design. Here's the main thing. Your signature should be legible. Now, I guess here, I'm talking only to successful artists. How's that for a snobby comment? If you're just painting for fun, then you can sign your painting any the heck way you want to. But if you're trying to sell your paintings, now at that point, that's the dividing line, then you sign it so that it can be read. This is your most important trademark, your most important marketing tool is your signature. Now, I know I've said all this before, but maybe somebody's new and you haven't heard it. I have heard some outrageous things said about signatures. Not directly, but people have told me, oh, I had a professor who said, here's one. I've got two of them for you. Some professor, and I think they were telling me the truth. Some professor says you should always sign your painting in red. Preposterous. It's just absurd. Just absurd. Where did that person get that? So, okay, what color do? You do some color. It's real easy, right? You can see the highlight. There's the light in this painting is all this warm yellow, warm white, warm yellow. That's why my signature is exactly that color, okay? Hang on just a second, let me make sure. All right, so no, don't sign it in red. That's okay. I mean, I could have done this one in red, ironically, because there's just enough red in the painting, but no. Secondly, I heard some crazy professor say you should always do your signature with a single stroke. And that is right there, that is the worst. That's even worse than always signing it in red. In other words, and I have a name for that school of thought. And forgive me, I know I'm being kind of hard here and harsh because I want you guys to be good artists and good signers. Sign it with a single swoosh. I call that the mark of Zorro mindset. That I am so famous, I'm going to be so famous that people will recognize my mark. Number one, that is so arrogant. It's just stupid to think you're going to be so famous that the general public, not your brother, sister, mother, not your neighbors, no, not your friends, the world, the general, the public, that they'll recognize it because you're so famous. Anyway, so no, don't do that. Thirdly, well, I don't know. So do it whatever color you want. Do it in the right position. Do it so it's legible. Take your time. Figure out your signature. And for those of you who haven't figured it out yet, a couple months ago at our painters group, somebody said, "Well, Dan, your signature is just so perfect." Well, that's because I took time one day years ago and figured it out. I have a real signature. This is, so to speak, how I sign my checks, right? But like most of you, my check signature is so messy you can hardly read it. This is the cleaned up version. So this is my real signature. It's just much cleaned up. Does that make sense? So that's what I recommend. Just, again, put on your graphic designer hat. You can do that. You can do it. And make up something attractive that is an actual reflection of your real signature. Does that make sense? And yeah, do not go for this Okay, another thing I must say. Do not use initials. Do not use initials. Now, if your first name is Theopustius, first of all, God help your soul, then maybe you could call yourself T. Smith, because you don't want to write Theopustius. I'm being absurd, but not totally. Okay? If you have a first or last name that is just outrageous, then and long, if you're from Wales, for instance, they have the world's longest words in Wales, in the Welsh language. So if that's the case, then maybe. Or if your name is Thomas James, and everybody in your life knows you as TJ, if that's your name is TJ, then use your initials. I will tell you, I'm going to blow cover here, and blow cover of some of my friends. The reason they signed their initial instead of their whole name is, first of all, because they're a little bit ashamed of living. And so they say, oh, I'm just going to sign my initial. That's good enough. Forgive me for breathing. I'll stop soon enough. That's why they do it. But more importantly, I'm going to sit down here and finish this tirade and read your chats before I fold up here tonight. The other reason that you do initials is because you're not using a Winsor Newton Series 7 brush, and you have such poor brushmanship skills that your signature looks like crap, and therefore, if you use an initial, it's at least less crap on your painting. I'm sorry to use such naughty words, but some of you need a good shaking. Stop that. Your name, if your name is Bill, write Bill. If your name is JW, then write JW if that's your name that everybody knows you by. But most of you guys, it's not. You do P. Jones because your name is Patricia, but it's, all right, enough said. So practice, get a good brush, that's number one. Don't even try to do this with a cheap brush. Oh, can you use a marker? I'm gonna say, hell no. No, but I've already used my quota of bad words already tonight. No, heck no. No, can you use a marker? No, can you use a pencil? No. And I'm not talking watercolor here, I'm talking oil and acrylic. Can you scratch with your brush? Sometimes. If the paint is so thick, if you're a slab painter, yes, you can scratch with the handle of your skinny handle of your brush. That is legal. Even so, I would recommend scratching so that people can read it. Anyway, the overall principle here is you want to look good, you want to look confident, you want people to read your name. Now, again, I'm only talking to people who want to sell their artwork, okay? If you have no intention of really ever selling it, then ignore everything else. This is not for you. This is for you if you're young and you want a career. I cannot tell you so many times I've walked into a gallery or walked into a business place and I see a painting and I go, oh, that's nice. And I look for the name and it's the Mark of Zorro. And I say, nice artist, nice painting. The artist am an idiot. And I really believe that. The artist is an idiot. They probably, many times in my case, they live in my town. They live here. If I see their painting here in this town, the painting was bought here. And I should know who they are. I want to start building up they want me to start building up an awareness of their presence, but they have completely blown it in the signature. All right, again, I know I'm being really harsh tonight. Let's go back to being nice. Heather and Barbara, lots of good chats. I'll come down to you guys in a minute. I love it when you guys greet each other. Hello, Antonio and Edelton, J.A. from Brazil, right? That's fun. Thank you. I don't know if you're still with us, but we enjoyed having you while we're here. Heather, the steam rising from the street is making an amazing aura around that red light. What, in here, or are you talking about for real? I think you're talking about here, right? Good, thank you. But it might have been happening out there. This is a gorgeous night. It really has been beautiful. David Mercer. Thank you, my friend. That's crap. Another masterpiece. the highest form of compliment. I thank you very much. That window here to your left on the edge, is it a window or a door? Anyway, some weird there. Yeah, I was early thinking I should clean that up, but after second thought, I don't think I should. It is actually like a city storefront, so it's window, then angle in, and then the doors over here. But those are windows, and that was part of the painting that I thought I was going to have to clean up. And then when I looked at it this morning, I said, no, that looks good. That looks good just the way it is. Oh, by the way, when I say a little while ago, I signed it and I said I was finished. That doesn't mean that I won't. I almost certainly will look at it with fresh eyes tomorrow morning or whenever and touch it up. I probably won't broadcast. It'll be too minor. But, you know, that's very, very, very typical, is that I'll do little bits of touch up here and there. Heather, good to have you back. You have missed lots of them, but good to have you back. Barbara, I think you heard me say I did get your bid. Thank you, Heather. Nice comment about so much more to these paintings when seen in person. Yep, exactly. Yeah, good. Heather, you've got the right mindset regardless of what's on top layer. That's right. That's a good description, I think, of good painting. One can't help but be drawn into the mystery of what was under this, and little bits of it are coming through. Again, at the Rembrandt, and I've seen real not reproductions. I've seen several of the real Rembrandts, including his most famous Night Watch, or Captain Banningcock's Militia, in Amsterdam, twice. Fascinating. The whole museum. And it's the primary Rembrandt museum. And the Rembrandt's genius, by the way, I believe is seen mostly, at least in a way that most of us can perceive, in his sketches and drawings. David Hockney, famous artist and author. You could Google this probably. David Hockney, spelled the way it sounds, Hockney. David Hockney, greatest drawing ever drawn, or something like that. If you want to get a handle, that would be a good corollary to all my craziness. Like, why do I think that this green mark is good, or this blue mark, this abstract stuff is good? Google David Hockney, greatest painting ever, something like that. It's a Rembrandt drawing, and he explains. And I hope you would, as you read it and look at it, you go, oh wow, oh wow, oh wow, that's right. And it takes some of us that to get into the second half of life. I was going to say the Rembrandt. There's in Amsterdam, the Rijksmuseum. Of course, it's chock full of unbelievable art. One in particular that I cite in the book that's maybe going to get written someday. It's about 25 feet wide, 8 or 10 feet tall. So big. And it is so real, not by Rembrandt, by somebody else. It is so realistic. It is literally, absolutely jaw-dropping. I mean, and most of these paintings are guild paintings. Maybe you know that. In that era, it's like a class picture, except instead of a school class, it's the men of this or that guild. And yes, it was, of course, heavily male-dominated, all kinds of things like that. But so it was all the men dressed up. Often they would dress up in particular fancy costumes for this painting. And there are several of these in the Rijksmuseum. And one I have in mind in particular, there's armor, a man in armor, and you can walk up and look at it this close. And if you didn't have all your peripheral senses in operation, you would swear you could go clang, 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 and it would ring. And likewise, there's a man with fur on part of his costume. You get this close to it, and you go. I mean, again, it's Drew Blairish on a monstrous scale, 10 feet tall, 20 feet wide, something like that. 30 people, 40 men in it, And here is Rembrandt's commonly called the Night Watch or Captain Bannicock's Militia, something like that. Same assignment, same exact assignment as this guy across the hall who did hyperrealism, 8 by 20 feet. Rembrandt had the same exact assignment, portraits of 30 blokes in this militia, not a militia, in this club, the guild. They dressed up like they were militia, and maybe they really were, but doesn't matter. They were dressed up like military people, that was the point. And the contrast between, right down the hall, one man's hyper-realism, absolutely breathtaking, cannot take anything away from that. But the contrast between that and Rembrandt's Night Watch is transcendent, jaw-dropping, unbelievable. Because Rembrandt, same assignment, still deadheads, every portrait is perfect. That's not the problem. That's not the issue. He can do portraits. But it's composition. It's light, bouncing, shearing, glowing, sparking, exploding, smashing. It's light, and it is just absolutely riveting. Of course, and it's about, I don't know, 10 by 15 feet. It's not a small painting either, of course. So when we see it, in our little books or something, of course, it doesn't hold a candle. Anyway. And it's what's underneath so much. It's not what's on top. Have you learned this, by the way? We're all this way. When you and I look at, let's say, Bernini marble, another freak of nature, human being, Italian sculptor in marble, Bernini, the ecstasy of Saint Teresa, I think, is one of his greatest. I'm just jaw-dropping. But one of the funny things I know about me and us is we only see the last layer. Like we look at the fingernail on Saint Teresa and go, how did he do that? Without breaking the finger off, unbelievable. What we don't see is the tons of marble that he took off early in the process. How did he do that? That's the real mystery. And same thing with paintings like this. People, like their eye will go to this green, and they'll notice that. Non-artists will say, oh, look, I like that green, or I like that purple. By the way, I don't like that purple. Hang on. It needs some messing up. There we go. They only see the top layer. You and I, as artists, we realize that it's all the underlayers that are actually impacting the top layer that impacts the casual viewer. All right. Boy, that was a long detour, wasn't it? And Heather says, Barbara, if you win the auction, congrats on getting a Dan Elson original. Best of luck. No worries. I'm not in competition. Barbara, I'm glad you're excited. Bless your heart. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Heather says, I use an illegible chicken scratch of a few lines as a sign. Okay. Are you trying to sell, Heather? You can, I hope I'm bending your twig without breaking it or offending you. Okay, Pask, just your last name? Fortunately, yes. I would say Barbara. Forgive me for judging. You all can do whatever you want, of course, you know that. But your last name is not Smith or Jones or Nelson. It's an unusual enough name that if you lived in my city, or I lived in your city, and I saw a painting that said Pask on it, I'd go, oh, that's one of Barbara's paintings. Do you know what I mean? Whereas if it said Johnson, William, Smith, Jones, a common name. Nah, I wouldn't recommend that. But you can get away with it because of Pask. That'll work. Yeah, Heather, I love it. Yes, a registered nurse. Your handwriting is terrible. All doctors' writing is completely illegible, right? Oh, there you go, Heather. You're using your maiden name because it's half as long. That's legal too. Lob Abd. Artists are lazy. They are. We are. We're all lazy. I know it. All right, Heather Catley. The aura was when you turned the camera early in the stream before the light was gone. Oh, good. So you're actually talking about the literal street. Yes, it was truly. The lighting was absolutely beautiful earlier tonight. Heather asks a very good question. Do I think that photography has impacted realism? Oh, no doubt. Absolutely. In fact, most of what we call realism today is actually photographism. It's actually copies of a photograph, and the internet is full of this stuff. Drew Blair makes editorial decisions, and he says that clearly. He working from a photograph, he makes changes, but the effect is essentially still the copy of a photograph. There is no question. And I've said before, the way I treat, for instance, my tail lights here is very possibly completely a steal from photography. When I pointed up there, I just remembered something else that I was going to do before I quit, and that is I've lost all my headlights because I did a warm glaze, and I like the warm glaze, but I need to come back now and redo some of the highlights for the headlights, I'm sorry, that are going way back into the distance. And I also think I should do lighter highlights on. This might be because everything got glazed, of course. Before I started the broadcast tonight, everything got glazed. Yeah, so I'm doing the headlights. Anyway, so even this, the way I treat taillights, and I'm not about to change because it's the best way I know of to make it look like a red light, is to do that, white in the center and then fade out to red. And that may be because the human race has been schooled, if you will, by photography. We know what a glowing thing looks like, maybe because of photography. And I by the way, just discovered another thing I need to do. Forgive me for going on and on. I never came back and did the final layer on this blue field of the sky. So what I just did is, again, do you paint the background, the blue first, and then stars on top of it, or do you do it the other way around? And of course the answer is you do it the other way around. So I already had dots of white that represented stars, but now I've done light blue around those dots, right? But are you with me? But I'm not done. Now that I've done that, I can come in, re-accentuate just a few stars, not many, and never ever try to get anywhere near 50 stars. That would just be a painting disaster. All right, that's good. So I've sort of tried to do the best of both worlds. Painting the background after the object, which creates confusion, which creates aesthetic pleasure, but then also coming back and doing just a little bit of hyperlight stars in this case. Whew. All right, I can go on all night. And you guys are making good comments, so let me catch up with you. Heather again. Oh, Heather, bless you. Health on Heather. Everybody, hold up your hands. Bless Heather with health so she can paint. Barbara, I like paintings to look like paintings, not photographs. And most of us do. I have a little question as to whether that's artsy people. It is to some degree, but I find that most people who are collectors of art, that people who actually buy art, and you walk into their home and they have a lot of real art, they tend to be like artists, that they like impressionistic paintings, not all quite so hyper-realistic. That's just an unscientific opinion there. Heather, perhaps one day I'll be able to sell. That's good. Right, Heather. I remember your horse flag painting. Yeah, keep on, my dear. And Heather says, I just glanced up and the light color with the T shadow to the left of the flag looks like a face. Oh, yes. Right there. Is it? The light color with the T shadow to the left of the flag with the T shadow looks like a face. I think you're talking in there. It does. It's kind of fun when those things happen. People sometimes say, did you do that on purpose? And of course the answer is no way. But I'm glad they, I'm glad they see stuff like that. That's fun. All right. Hey, it's not too late. It's only 9:40. It'll take me 40 minutes to pack up and 20 minutes to drive home. Time to practice my trumpet. To bless my family. My patient wife. And by the way, I do believe you're going to hear me practice sometime. You hear me talking about it all the time. I play several instruments. I work at one of them, the trumpet, and I play at a bunch of others. And I think that I'm going to start playing downtown here. We'll see. It has to be, obviously that'd be a lot more stuff to carry downtown with me and so on. But let's see how it goes. All right. Thank you guys and girls. It has been great fun having you here again. You keep me going. And Sherry Maxwell says, yep, agrees. Kenzo. Good. More than one of you saw the face. That's fun. All right. I'm having too much fun. I could talk forever, but I got to pack up. Love you guys. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye. Thank you, Sherry. Got your comment. Bye-bye.